And a very good evening to you. Yes, it is I, the Conspicuous Moo. And we've had a bit of Brewmaster news recently, and of course the Scourge invasion has gone live, so there's lots to chat about today, and we will go into detail about some of these things. We will start, of course, with the Bone Marrow hops. Let's get cracking. Bone Marrow hops is the conduit for Bonedust Brew, and in its previous form, it would increase your shadow damage and healing by a certain amount, and the cooldown would be reduced by 0.5 seconds for every time that it procced. And it had absolutely no restrictions on it whatsoever, so what people would normally do is they would spam as much AoE as they possibly could to get as many procs as possible and get Bonedust Brew down from its 1 minute cooldown to around about 30 seconds. So it was completely uncontrolled and was way ahead, certainly when it came to AoE situations and trash packs and in Mythic Plus. But now they've made a change, and whether it's a good one or not, well, that's entirely up to you. But basically, the maximum that you can reduce through the conduit now is 2.5 seconds or 5 procs. After that, you can't get any additional cooldown reduction from the conduit. And, you know, Bonedust Brew lasts for about 10 seconds, so, you know, 5 procs inside those 10 seconds and then you're done. So even if you do it early, like, you know, a spinning crane kick, it's all 5 at once, you won't get any further cooldown after that. But personally, I would have preferred a 1 second internal cooldown, so it procs, 1 second internal cooldown, can proc again. This is one way of dealing with it, I suppose. The damage and the healing is unaffected, so, you know, that can still proc. It's still going to be procking crazy, it's just, you know, you've now got a limit to how much you can cool down per Bonedust Brew window. So, yes, what does this mean? Essentially, yeah, there is a lot less uptime of Bonedust Brew. People are talking about having about 80% uptime, which is crazy, to around 30%. So, you know, in terms of the additional damage and healing, you're not going to get as much of it, and you're not going to be able to use Bonedust Brew as regularly as you did before. Was the nerf needed? Yes, absolutely. Bonedust Brew was way in front, like stupidly in front, and though I dislike the term, it was degenerate gameplay. You know, sometimes you just need to have restrictions on these things, and we have been expecting some kind of control on this conduit for months now. So, you know, now it's finally arrived, and probably not in the way I wanted it to, but yes, absolutely, it was required. And of course the most important thing that everyone's going to go for is Bonedust Brew now worthless? And the answer is, of course, no, it isn't. It's just been brought back into line with everything else, apart from Night Vale, which is slightly below the other three. But, you know, for the most part, you know, you can still absolutely use Bonedust Brew. It's still a very, very good option in AoE situations and Mythic Plus. I think damage-wise it's on the same level as about Kyrian. If you want Venthyr, it's still the best DPS option. You just go with your Fallen Order and the monks will just go nuts. But yeah, you know, it's now part of the family, as opposed to, you know, just sort of way out there. Right, moving on. Threat! Finally, Threat has actually been addressed, because Threat has been an issue in the beta for most of the tanks apart from Prot Pallies and I think Vengeance Demon Hunters. They've been doing a lot of damage and generating a lot of threat themselves. Now they have copped a few nerfs recently, unfortunately, and so, you know, their threat is starting to become an issue as well, so they have finally updated it with rolling restarts from Tuesday night. So that's good. The not so good is that it's only by about 11% by most people's reckoning. Now, that's not a great amount of additional threat to be generated. I mean, yeah, we'll take it, absolutely, but, you know, we're expecting something maybe a tick higher than that. And, you know, chances are, you know, they'll have a look at the early data in Shadowlands and go, okay, maybe we need to wrap that up a little. So, at present, there are 3 debates about threat. There is a certain side that says that threat should just be effortless, you know, it should just be rushing Jadewind and everything just sticks to you and, you know, it's really nothing to worry about anymore. There's another line of argument, which is like that threat is important, it's an important tanking mechanic, and, you know, it really should be part of a tanking rotation and, you know, even a reflection on your ability in some cases. And then there are people who are questioning why threat is even a mechanic that still exists in the game. My personal feeling is that middle one, that threat is still important. Now, it doesn't have to be, you know, like, wow, classic threat. You know, because, you know, that requires a lot of work just to keep, especially with very limited AoE abilities that you have in Classic. It's quite difficult to keep hold of everything, especially if you've got DPS attacking different targets, you know, and anyway, it can get frustrating. So yes, I believe it's important. So I think this 11%, while it's not massive, is a step in the right direction. You know, I still personally want threat to be an important part of what I do as a tank, and, you know, how to keep track of everything. You know, it's not just, you know, standing there with mitigation getting hit in the face, but, you know, there's all of those other factors in play. So yes, it's a good start. We'll see how it goes. I'm sure they'll get feedback really quickly though if threat is still an issue. And finally, let's go into the now live Scourge invasion. So part 1 of the quest chain is now live. It's not very exciting. You go and collect some reports, and then you are sent off to Icecrown shortly afterwards. Now there will be another quest next to that quest giver, who will ask you to stop by the Maristead and Eastern Plaguelands and give Nathanos Blightcaller a little tweak on the nose. If you do manage to defeat him, and it's not particularly difficult, it is a weekly quest and it will drop eye level 115 gear, which is rather nice. Once the leading quests are completed in Icecrown, you will get a couple of dailies to do. I'm sure you've all done dailies before, so I'm pretty sure you know what's involved there. And then you will get access to the Icecrown boss loot Penata. Basically, they've taken a whole bunch of Wrath of the Lich King classics and are reanimating them every 20 minutes or so in different locations around Icecrown. And, you know, you just get entire hordes of people all crowding around. It's an absolute lag fest, but it does drop eye level 110 gear and some other interesting things as well. Bronjarm is one of the bosses, but he drops a 34 slot bag, so he's rather popular. But because of this 20-minute wait cycle, you can only actually access him, well, once every 6 hours and 40 minutes. It's also important to note that, you know, these bosses will only drop loot for you once a day, but they will also drop, possibly, very low chance, a second version of the Haunted Memento, which was a very popular item back in Wrath of the Lich King and sold for absolute bazillions of gold afterwards. They will also drop Scourge Stones. Now, Scourge Stones can be redeemed at the Argent Tournament. They will give you some Argent Commendations for each set of Scourge Stones, and then you will basically use those for currency for eye level 100 armor. And that is redeemable by your capital city vendor. Just a couple of other notes on the Icecrown boss loot fest. There are no trinket drops. None. Well, at least Wowhead has not got any information about any trinket drops from any of these bosses, so if you're hoping to get some nice trinkets going in, sorry, that's not going to be possible. Everything else drops, so heads, shoulders, necks, chests, waists, legs, feet, rings. A lot of it has haste in it, but, you know, what do you care? If it's a major upgrade, you'll take it, right? I would just caution you that you need to check your Azerite armor, because the Azerite armor you have equipped is probably quite high eye level and will probably have a ton of primary stats on them, which, you know, for Brewmasters is agility and stamina, both very useful. So chances are, you know, even if the traits are removed, as they will be when Shadowlands goes live, these Azerite pieces are probably going to be actually more valuable than the ones that drop in the boss's area. It's just something to keep an eye out for. So, yeah, as you can imagine, this is a great time to gear alts, get them up to speed. You know, there's stuff is like, I don't know, about normal Nyalotha level, eye level gear, so it's going to be a decent stepping stone for you to get into the Shadowlands content. However, you know, if you don't need the gear, or you only have one character, for example, you probably don't need to be doing any of this at all. You know, the bag is nice, the memento is very nice, maybe you just stick around for those two, but, you know, at the end of the day, you know, if you're already 110 and upwards, then there isn't really much point in flying around waiting 20 minutes in these different locations. And you also might have noticed some zombies wandering around trying to eat your head. Now, this is perfectly normal behaviour. For 2 weeks anyway. So yes, the zombie encounter is here now on the PTR. It was just constant, and it was a bit misery-inducing for those of us who weren't too keen on being turned into a zombie, killed, and then camped at the graveyard. So you know where I am on the whole zombie side. I didn't like it in Wrath, and I don't like it now. So they've done a compromise, and the Zombie Fest will come around every few hours or so. So just to keep it. If people start wandering around smelling a bit funny, then they're probably zombie-like in some way, or they're a demon hunter. And finally, I just wanted to point out that Llarold, who is a very, very highly respected long-term Brewmaster genius, has released an updated Brewmaster guide on Wowhead for our whole little Shadowlands family. It goes into an awful lot of detail about things, the legendary choices, why you should pick them, why you shouldn't pick them, talent choices as well. And for the most part, I agree with large parts of it. I think there's one talent I'm not really sure about, Bob and Weave as a talent, and I'll probably go for either Healing Elixir or Dampen Harm, but that's another thing. For the most part, fabulous guide. I will link it in the description because it's well worth taking a look at. It is a bit of a university thesis, but you can't help but appreciate the amount of work that they've actually put into this. It's really, really good. And that's it. I think that's all the Brewmastery things at the moment. The threat thing is going to be really interesting, I think, and I'm really interested to see how that turns out. And of course, imagine 2 weeks' time, we will be in Shadowlands, we will be leveling, we will be looking at our first legendaries and stuff, so that's all pretty exciting stuff as well. So, like, comment, subscribe, donate, moo. Yeah, I think that's everything. Oh no, moo again. And I will be back if we have another beta update, which we probably will, let's be honest. They're still making tons of changes. And hopefully we will get a couple more buffs in some areas like Breath of Fire! Oh, sorry, what was that? Anyway, I will keep you updated in any case. For now though, I am the Conspicuous Moo, and a very good evening to you.